Hi, I'm Cindy Maxwell Ostick, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Nebraska Legislative Study Group. And I'm just really excited to be here this evening to talk with Nathan Leach. He is the director of the Nonpartisan Nebraska organization, and he's a rules enthusiast. And so we wanted to talk with him just a little bit about the upcoming legislative session that begins in January and what we can expect since it's the opening of a new session, and generally the legislature begins anew with their rules and how they function. And I know there's been a lot of concern and questions lately about how it might impact, the way committee chairs are elected and things like that. So I guess, Nathan, I thought I would just take a moment and ask you to kind of give us a little bit of an overview about, just super brief, the legislature and why this is an important topic, and then we can talk a little bit about the details. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I always appreciate the chance to talk about the legislative rules. In Nebraska, we have just a phenomenal legislature. It's a one-house body, and they pay very close attention to the process that they use. Part of that reason is because there's a unique philosophy that we adopted in 1934. Overwhelmingly, Nebraska voters voted in 1934 to institute this unicameral, and they also instituted this idea that it be nonpartisan. And so there's a couple of ways that ends up coming to fruition. You have the elections that are an open primary, a top two open primary, where all independents get to participate, and the top two vote getters proceed to the general. And then once lawmakers get to the Capitol building and get sworn in, they use a system of rules that we call nonpartisan. And what that means is there's no majority leaders, there's no minority leaders, there's no political caucuses. It's not like where, in a bicameral you have the speaker and they represent the majority party, and they just basically have power to appoint people to whichever committee. And in the legislature, it's very decentralized. It's based on this idea that every single state senator represents equally their constituents. And so we don't want to silence someone just because of their political party, because in our philosophy in the legislature, we're silencing 32,000 Nebraskans as a result. And so in practice with the rules, there's a couple of key different ways that they accomplish this, but one of the most relevant to our conversation this evening is the use of a ballot vote. In other legislatures, the political caucuses will meet and they choose, usually behind closed doors.
So
and they go ahead.
I am so sorry, because I don't want to interrupt, because I want you to pick that thought up in just one moment. But I'm going to just take a step back and let everyone know that this is the new biennium. We're going to start a new legislature here with this session in January. And the Nebraska legislature functions on a 2-year cycle. And so as the new senators come in that have just been elected and they're joined with the current senators, they will form a new session. And this process will help us find a new speaker. They will elect new committee chairs. They will administer and come up with their own rules, or approve the previous rules, things like that. And the reason this is coming up is because it is a new session. I just wanted to kind of give people a little bit of an overview. Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, and those officers that are elected, they serve for the 2 years. They call it, every new legislature gets a new number. And so this 2021 was the 107th legislature, second session. And so we're coming into the 108th legislature, first session. And then 2024 will be the 108th legislature, second session. But this use of a ballot allows senators to elect leadership without there's no interference from the outside. No one can bully them to vote for a specific person. And it's really, another part of it is because it's a small legislature with only 49 members, lawmakers have to work together issue by issue, and they have to form, coalitions and build positive relationships with one another. And so, just like the city council uses a ballot, the county commissioners, just like you use a ballot in your local, organization or in a high school club. I mean, using a ballot is super common. It's how we vote at the ballot box as well for the same reason. You want to protect your relationship with other people and allow that vote to be, a genuine expression of who you think is best for the job.
Mhm.
Now, there's recently been a push to get rid of this secret ballot and go to a recorded vote. Usually, there's a couple.
For electing the chair and the committee chairs as well as the speaker.
Yeah, so
The
they just
election of the leadership for the legislature. Mhm.
exactly, yeah. So they wouldn't have any ballot vote for this very specific thing that happens on the first day when they elect. Usually, the arguments to do that are based on they say that they're based on transparency, but in practice, it's really not a whole lot more transparent, because what ends up happening is before the election, the group, usually it gets broken down by party, go and they choose, okay, we're going to choose this person, we're going to choose this person, we're going to choose this person. And then you're expected to vote to, illustrate your loyalty to that club or that group of or slate of candidates. And if you don't, you've ruined your ability to have relationships with all these senators before the day has even, before the session even has begun.
Are you talking about what they would like to do
This
versus
is
like at this
exactly. Yeah, this is
traditionally the legislature has not
yeah,
had
that's
these public.
exactly. So that's how it works in other legislatures, and that's what there's been a push to do. And it really, over the past 10 years, it's kind of gotten more and more folks have been trying to push, mostly I would say very partisan folks, um, who feel like they're upset because like one or two Democrats gets elected to a committee chair, and they're like, oh well, we're a majority this party, and so how can you have this party in the chairmanship? And it's just a bunch of hooey, in my opinion. And part of the problem with it is our committee chairs are very administrative. They're nonpartisan in terms of their responsibilities to the legislature, which is not the case in other legislatures, where when you elect the speaker or you elect the committee chairs, they have the power to determine whether or not there's a committee hearing, the power to refer legislation. They have a very large impact on the public policy of the legislature, where in Nebraska, the committee chair has a little bit of an impact. They can schedule the time of some of these things, but comparatively, those elections really are based on the character and experience and ability of these folks to lead, not necessarily what their ideological expressions are.
Mhm.
Now, there's a little bit of that influence, but comparatively, it's nothing like other legislatures. So, anyway, yeah. So that's kind of the importance of that specific rule on the first day, and we may see an attempt to try and change that rule January 4th when the legislature meets. If there isn't a push on that first day, as the legislature comes along, they're going to be addressing the rules kind of that first 2-3 weeks of the session. And so you may hear some discussion about the secret ballot specifically. There may be some discussion about trying to change the filibuster or other elements of the rules. And it's really important that we be watchful of these changes, because they have a huge influence, not just on the coming legislative session, but these rules impact generations of lawmakers and generations of Nebraskans as a result. When you change the rules of the legislature, as someone who's gone back and looked at the rules from 1937 and in the 80s and just done a lot of research with these rules, once a rule changes, I mean, it doesn't really change back very often. It's very difficult for these changes to, you don't, once you make the change, it's kind of, you're kind of stuck with it unless you really have the ability to just really advocate for a change. So if they're successful, it's going to be, we want to make sure that any changes are thought out and they're genuinely good changes for the legislature and not being made just to, benefit one party over the other, or just for short-term policy gains. So anyway, I'll stop ranting about that, but I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Sure. Well, and I guess sometimes it's difficult, these topics, we start getting into the weeds as opposed to more of an overview. And I think it's just really important to stress to everybody how lucky we are that we live in Nebraska and we have our nonpartisan unicameral structure of government.
Mhm.
It means that we are more directly, our representation is as close as possible to us, to our lives and our livelihoods, these people making the decisions on our behalf. And the unicameral, because it is only one house, relies on everyday Nebraskans to take up their responsibility as the second house and to help the senators to make sure that they're implementing the best laws for our state and for everybody that it impacts. So when we talk about how the legislature is nonpartisan, a lot of people think, well, what do you mean? Of course, people are members of parties and things like that. Well, there's some people like me. I'm an actual independent. I'm registered nonpartisan. But most of the senators do belong to a political party. But the function of the legislature is not to be at the beholden to political party. Each senator is their own representation of their district. And the unique thing about the legislature is that they can take care of their own rules, make sure that they elect the best people to be chairs of these committees. And I remember going to the first day a couple years ago when they were doing elections, and it's a fascinating process on the first day. And if we lived in a state where it was based on majority, like say Congress or other states where they have two houses, the majority just makes assignments basically. And here in Nebraska, the great thing is that the legislature can use their judgment and elect the best person to be in charge of that particular committee. And I know I was talking with you recently and asked how long it's been that Nebraska has been represented by a majority of one party. I think it's been Republican majority for at least how many decades? Quite a few.
I actually have no idea.
I think
It's hard because we don't really the clerk's office doesn't really like keep track of that, and I don't necessarily pay a whole lot of attention to the partisan makeup of the body over time. But I mean, it's been predominantly Republican for a long time.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of our state.
But we've had members elect chairs of committees from the other party. Who were very expert at the committee that they were chairing. And they were able to do that because they didn't have these public votes where they might be bullied into voting only someone from their own party. And I know that the process has been very different this year because I know that the candidates who were running, as well as incumbents, were sent actual pledge forms to sign, whether, they would be voting one way or another. And I think that hopefully these senators are really looking into why it's important,
And that pledge is a pledge to change the rule to how partisan bicamerals do it with a roll call vote rather than this nonpartisan written ballot that we've used. Is that right?
Yeah. And it's just not, it won't serve our state well. It's just not long term. People, they talk about with transparency or, the votes that our senators make on our behalf regarding the laws are public. When they're voting for their own leadership within the legislature, they do that privately and independently. And it served our state very well for, back to when George Norris.
Yeah, almost 90 years now.
Yes. And this is my plug. I know there's like a shadow, but this book called The One House, The Unicameral's Progressive Vision for Nebraska, written by Charlene Behrens, is something that we have in the legislative study group. We have we have a lending library, but you can also order it. And it is just amazing background in history with George Norris and how this whole unicameral came about. I know that one thing I'll put in the chat or the description box is a link to the Nebraska Legislature website so that everyone can go and find your senator. There have been a lot of changes since this, with the census and redistricting. Some people live in different districts than they previously did. And then, of course, we've had recent elections. And so everyone's going to want to make sure and pull up who their current senator is and make sure and get in touch with them and let them know how important this is to you, that we maintain the nonpartisan nature of the legislature so that it can best represent everybody in our state and not just, a particular political party. That's exactly. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's so important. I worked as a page in the Arizona State Senate for a semester back in 2016. And it was shocking to me to watch just how everything that lawmakers did depended on the R or the D next to their name. Mm-hmm. And coming from Nebraska and watching how we do things, watching the legislature in high school and into college, and then going to Arizona and seeing that, it really took my breath away, because so often in Nebraska, a bill comes up, it's controversial. You actually get to sit there and listen to lawmakers go on the floor and talk about this issue in depth, ask each other questions, have a dialogue. As a member of the public, you learn something from it. And I will say that it's the quality of debate recently has, over the last couple of years, has certainly gone down. But even compared to what it is now to how it was, for example, in Arizona, where, the minority might stand up and say, try and say, don't do this. And then the majority leader just stands up and says, I oppose this amendment, and sits down, and that's it. There's nobody cares. They know what the votes are. There's no dedication to the legislatures are deliberative bodies. That's why we have them. We send people there to debate and to deliberate and to reason with each other and to represent constituents. But far too often, when you see legislatures today, like you watch Congress, how many times have you ever watched Congress and seen any person more than just the person on the floor talking to the empty chamber? Those lawmakers aren't deliberating. Everyone else is out fundraising while so-and-so has the floor and has a speech that he hopes he might be able to get a small clip of so that it can, help his reelection. It's really quite a joke. And so it's really astonishing when you look at Nebraska and you see these lawmakers, have that dedication and have, an actual, asking each other questions and having a real quality debate about issues. It's something that's really valuable. And I think it's important to say that the quality of that has gone down with term limits. But the reason we are able to even get close to that is because of our dedication to a nonpartisan system where all senators have, the ability to represent, to speak, to offer amendments, the nonpartisan ballot votes that they use, and not using a partisan organization. It's really quite an astonishing system, and I hope that we can keep it going and have it as something that we can give to even more generations of Nebraskans.
Well, and I know we just wanted to have kind of a brief discussion about this, but there will be a lot of exciting kind of news coming out about this at the beginning of the legislature. And I'm going to put a link here on the page to our legislative study group. And just, people can find more information about how to study the legislature and information for people to, kind of learn more about the process. And I also would like to link to Nonpartisan Nebraska. What is the website, Nathan?
It's npnebraska.org.
npnebraska.org. Okay. And it'd be great if people would, make sure and put these into your, put them in your phone so that you can find that easily. And that way, when it comes time for the legislature to begin, we can, make sure and inform everybody. And I know that I'm hoping the senators will all use their higher ideals and really take seriously their responsibility to the state and to everybody that they represent, all their constituents. I know that I'll be reaching out to my new senator and letting him know how important I think this is, that he would be representing my family and that this is something I would want him to seriously consider. So hopefully people will follow through with that. And if they have more questions, they can certainly get in contact.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks so much, Nathan.
Yeah. And if anyone has any specific questions about the rules, I know it can feel kind of complicated. My email is nathan@npnebraska.org, and I'd be happy to give you some resources or answer any questions.
Great. Well, thanks again.
Members and guests, please be seated. Good morning. Welcome to George W. North's Legislative Chamber for the first day of the 108th Legislature, first session. Our chaplain for today is Senator Dorn. Please rise.
Please join me in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather on this first day of a new session, we thank you for giving each one of us the opportunity to serve the people of this state. We ask that you watch over each member, everyone in our families, and on our staff during the long hours and the miles that we will travel these next few months. We ask for your and enable us to work together for the good of everyone affected by our actions. We do not take our responsibilities lightly, and we humbly ask for your blessing on this 108th legislative session. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Senator Dorn. If you could all please remain standing, we'll now have the presentation of the colors from the Nebraska State Patrol Color Guard. Senator Aguilar. Senator Aguilar, if you could please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First session of the Legislature of Nebraska assembled in the George W. Norris Legislative Chamber of the state capitol at the hour of 10 a.m. on Wednesday, January 4, 2023, is now called to order. Members, if you could please depress your green button and check in. Mr. Clerk, please record.
There's a quorum present, Mr. President.
Before proceeding, Senator Albright would like us to recognize Dr. David Holting, of Pender, Nebraska, serving us today as Family Physician of the Day. Dr. Holding is with us under the north balcony. Doctor, please rise. I'd like to welcome you to the Nebraska Legislature. We'll now proceed to the appointment of temporary officers. The chair recognizes Senator Vargas.
Thank you. I move to appoint Mr. Brandon Metzler as temporary clerk of the legislature and Mr. Burdette Burkhart as temporary sergeant at arms.
Thanks, Senator Vargas. The motion before you is the appointment of temporary officers. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Mr. Clerk, do you have resignation and appointment letters, please?
I do, Mr. President. First, a communication from the governor concerning the appointment of Senator Kauth to District 31. Additionally, a letter from former Senator Mike Flood on his notice of resignation, and a letter from the governor as well concerning the appointment of Senator Dover to District 19. A letter from, former Senator Mike Hilgers concerning his letter of resignation, and a letter from the governor concerning the appointment of Senator Ballard to District 21 in his place. That's all I have at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Chair recognizes Senator Hunt for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed to the election of 5 persons to serve to the Committee on Credentials, who will forthwith report to the legislature on the credentials of those claiming to be elected to the legislature in the general election of November 2022. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Hunt. Members, you heard the motion. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. I hereby appoint the following 5 members to the committee: Senators Aguilar, Conrad, Blood, Bosselman, and Erdman. All those in favor of that committee say aye. Those opposed say nay. Will those 5 members please retire to the rear of the chamber and join with the clerk and the Secretary of State? Mr. Clerk, you're recognized.
Mr. President, I have a report from the Secretary of State certifying that all election returns, abstracts, canvases, and appointment records with reference to said members are on file in the office of the Secretary of State and are a matter of public record. That's all I have this time.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Chair recognizes Senator Brandt for a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the Committee on Credentials report as certified and presented by the Secretary of State.
Thanks, Senator Brandt. Motion before you is to approve the report of the Committee on Credentials. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The report is adopted. Chair now recognizes Senator Merman for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Committee of 5 be appointed to escort the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to the Legislative Chamber for the purpose of administering oath of office to the members of the legislature.
Thanks, Senator Merman. The motion before you is to select a committee of 5 to escort the Chief Justice. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. The chair now appoints the following 5 senators to the escort committee: Senators Wayne, Slama, John Kavanaugh, McDonald, and Geis. Will that committee of 5 please retire to the clerk of the Supreme Court's office to escort the Chief Justice to the chamber for the purposes of administering the oath. The chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
President, your committee now escorting the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the great state of Nebraska, Mike Havokin.
The chair recognizes the Chief Justice.
Thank you very much. And you all can be seated except those of you who need to be sworn in. And I will read those names. Senator Robert Clements, Senator Brad Von Gillern, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, Senator Megan Hunt, Senator Wendy DeBoer, Senator Merv Reapy, Senator John Arch, Senator Ben Hansen, Senator Christy Armendariz, Senator John Frederickson, Senator Ballard, Senator Mike Moser, Senator Jana Hughes, Senator George Dungan III, Senator Jane Raybould, Senator Myron Dorn, Senator Kathleen Kauth, Senator Tom Brandt, Senator Lauren Lippincott, Senator Richard Holdcroft, Senator David Merman, Senator Barry DeKay, Senator Mike Jacobson, Senator Teresa Ibach, Senator Danielle Conrad, Senator Brian Hardin, and I believe that is everybody. If there is anybody who has been elected or re-elected, whose name I did not call, please let us know. And you've all found a place down here in front. That's very good. Now, if you would please raise your right hand. Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska and will faithfully discharge the duties of Nebraska state legislators according to the best of your ability? If so, please answer either I so swear or I so affirm. Thank you very much. Congratulations. You may take your seats.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice. Would the escort committee please assist the Chief Justice as he departs the chamber? Members, the next item of business is the consideration of temporary rules. Because we have such a large delegation of new members, I might just say a word or two about temporary rules. In your desk drawer in front of you, you'll find a book of this color. It is the rules of the prior legislature. That's kind of a starting point for consideration of temporary rules. A legislature cannot bind a future legislature. So at this point in our proceedings, we've been operating under Mason's rules. Now we're going to make a transition to legislative rules. Mason's rules, for those of you who are not familiar, is a compendium of rules written about 85 years ago. It's been rewritten and edited over all these decades. It's published by the National Conference of State Legislatures. And we now transition from Mason's rules to legislative rules. Legislative rules pursuant to Mason's can be adopted on a majority vote, which would be 25 votes in this case. It is an amendable motion. It's a debatable motion. I don't have any amendments pending. And when we get to permanent rules, which would be, I don't know, a week or so at the discretion of the speaker, then you'll have another discussion of rules, but that will occur on permanent rules discussion later. With all of that as a background, I recognize Senator Clements for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules, as now in our possession, be adopted for today through day 12, Friday, January 20th, 2023.
Thank you, Senator Clements. Members, you heard the motion to adopt temporary rule. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The motion is adopted. We now move to the election of permanent officers. The chair recognizes Senator Arch.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the following officers recommended by the Executive Board be elected to serve for the 108th Legislature. Clerk of the Legislature, Brandon Metzler. Assistant Clerk of the Legislature, Richard K. Brown. Sergeant at Arms, Burdett Burkhart.
Members, you heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Now, for family members, we've enjoyed having your presence on the floor here today. However, this time we'll now be proceeding to the election of Speaker, and we'll need to ask you to please move under the balconies and let the senators get on with their business. We'll take a moment just to allow you to do that. Members, please come to order. Senator Breezy, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to proceed to the election of the Speaker of the Legislature. Thank you.
Members, you've heard the motion to proceed to the election of a speaker. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. We shall proceed. Members, as we consider candidates for various leadership positions, those interested in running for those positions through normal traditional practice would simply depress their light, indicating an opportunity to speak and nominate themselves. Senator Arch, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I rise today as a candidate for Speaker of the Legislature. I would consider it an honor to serve in this capacity. Relationships. There are 49 of us in this room who will make the decisions that come before us. Each one of us came with a desire to make the state of Nebraska a better place to live, work, raise a family, and retire. And we would almost certainly be unanimous on many desired outcomes. Some examples: excellent education for every student, equal justice under the law, a motivated and well-educated workforce, equal opportunity to improve lives, good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. My point is that we have a starting point for healthy relationships if we don't forget our agreement on the ultimate goals. Our debate then becomes the best way to achieve those goals, and we will have debate. The second essential component is healthy communication. Communication is hard work and takes time, and it is very hard to find the time when the session starts rolling. But there is no replacement for good communication amongst the members. Misunderstandings are the result of poor or lack of communication, talking about each other instead of talking to each other. Misunderstandings lead to unnecessary conflict, which we need to avoid. So here's my commitment to you, if elected your speaker. I will work to listen. I will seek to understand. I will attempt to clearly communicate. I would consider it a privilege to serve you, and I ask for your vote today to serve as your speaker. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Arch. Are there any further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders, you recognize for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nomination be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Arch, Speaker.
Thanks, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is the motion to cease nominations and declare Senator Arch Speaker by acclamation. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Speaker Arch. Chair recognizes Senator Ibach.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that a committee of 5 be appointed to escort the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to the legislative chamber for the purpose of administering the oath of office to the officers of the legislation.
Thank you. The motion before you is to select a committee of 5 to escort the Chief Justice to administer the oath of office to the officers who have been selected. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. The chair now appoints the following committee to escort the Chief Justice: Senators Reapy, Sanders, Bostar, Halloran, and McKinney. If those 5 would please retire to the clerk's office of the Supreme Court to escort the Chief Justice back to the chamber. Members, please come to order. Chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. President, your committee now escorting the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the great state of Nebraska, Mike Havikan.
The chair recognizes the Chief Justice of the Nebraska Supreme Court.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You may be seated. And now I will be swearing in the new Speaker of the Legislature, John Arch, the Clerk of the Legislature, Brandon Metzler, the Assistant Clerk of the Legislature, Richard Brown, and the Sergeant at Arms, Burdette Burkhart, beginning with the new Speaker of the Legislature, Senator John Arch. Senator Arch, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska, and will faithfully discharge the duty of Speaker of the Legislature according to the best of your ability? If so, please answer either "I so swear" or "I so affirm." Thank you very much and congratulations. And now the new Clerk of the Legislature, Brandon Metzler. Do you please raise your right hand? Do you, Brandon Metzler, solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska, and will faithfully discharge the duties of Clerk of the Legislature according to the best of your ability? If so, please answer either "I so swear" or "I so affirm." Thank you very much. Congratulations. And now, the longtime Assistant Clerk of the Legislature, Richard K. Brown. Please raise your right hand. Do you, Richard K. Brown, solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska, and will faithfully discharge the duties of Assistant Clerk of the Legislature according to the best of your ability? If so, please answer either "I so swear" or "I so affirm." Thank you very much. Congratulations. And the Sergeant at Arms, Burdette Burkhart. Please raise your right hand. Do you, Burdette Burkhart, solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska, and will faithfully discharge the duties of Sergeant at Arms according to the best of your ability? If so, please answer either I so swear or I so affirm. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And that concludes this round of swearing-ins.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice. Would the escort committee please assist the chief as he departs the chamber? Members, please come to order. Senator Geist, you recognize for motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to proceed to the election of the chairperson of Committee on Committees.
Members, you've heard the motion to proceed with the election of the chair of Committee on Committees. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. We shall proceed. Senator Albright, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues and friends, I rise to place my name in nomination for a chairperson of the Committee on Committees. First of all, I'd like to start by congratulating Speaker Arch on his election. I'm looking forward to working with him. Only 6 short years ago, I came to the legislature in a class of 18 members. Throughout my time in the legislature, I've served on many different committees. Over the past 2 years, I've served as a member of Committee on Committees representing the 3rd Caucus, and I feel that I'm ready to step up and chair Committee on Committees. Many decisions will be made regarding committee placements. It would be an honor and a privilege to serve in this capacity for the 108th legislative session. We are not just making decisions for ourselves, but we are also for the citizenry of Nebraska. I humbly ask for your vote, and we'll work together to keep Nebraska strong. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Albright. Are there any further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Joni Albright, Committee Chair.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Maybe you heard the motion to cease nominations to declare Senator Albright chair. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Albright. Senator Walls, you recognize.
Yeah, I have to get ready or acclimated to the new seat here. Thank you, Mr. President. I move to proceed to the election of the remaining 12 members of the Committee on Committees and that we authorize the members residing within each of the 3 districts as enumerated in Rule 3, Section 2, to nominate 4 members to be elected by the legislative body to serve on Committee on Committees. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Walls. The motion before you is to elect the remaining members of the Committee on Committees. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Will each of the 3 caucuses please submit your report to the clerk at the front of the legislature? I believe we have that. Mr. Clerk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Communication from the 1st District Caucus announcing Senators Bruce Bostelman, Elliot Bostar, Rita Sanders, and Mike Mosier to serve on the Committee on Committees. Communication from the 2nd District Caucus stating that Senators Tony Vargas, Senators Megan Hunt, Luann Linehan, Brad Von Gillern will serve on the Committee on Committees. And finally, communication from the 3rd District Caucus concerning the nomination of Senators John Lowe, Dave Merman, Mike Jacobson, and Steve Erdman as members on the Committee on Committees.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Chair recognizes Senator Wayne for a motion.
Good morning, everyone. I move the approval of the nominees to the Committee on Committees.
Members, you heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. We'll now proceed to the election of the chairperson of the Executive Board. Chair recognizes Senator Arch for a motion.
I move to proceed to the election of the chairperson of the Executive Board of the Legislative Council.
Members, you heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Senator Breezy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. I'd first like to welcome everyone here today, colleagues, friends, family, press, legislative employees, and the legislative family that's with us here today. And I rise to nominate myself to serve as chair of the Executive Board. As Executive Board Chair, I envision my role to be that of facilitator, moderator, mediator. My goal will be to ensure that the legislature and its divisions run as smoothly and seamlessly as possible. I will do my best to ensure that all members of the legislature, all employees of the legislature, employees of the divisions of the legislature, and all members of the public are treated with fairness and respect. At the end of the day, I'd like to ensure that this legislature is one that all Nebraskans can be proud of. And I humbly ask for your vote and your support in that endeavor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Breezy. Are there any further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Breezy, Executive Board.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is to close nominations and to declare Senator Breezy as chair of the Executive Board by acclamation. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Breezy. Senator Wishart, you're recognized.
Mr. President, I move to proceed to the election of the vice chairperson of the Executive Board of the Legislative Council.
Thanks, Senator Wishart. Members, you've heard the motion. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Nominations are now open for the vice chair of the Executive Board. Senator Aguilar, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the body, colleagues, I rise to humbly nominate myself for the vice chair of the Executive Board. I've been a member of this esteemed body for almost 12 years now. I've served on a variety of committees. I've even served as chair of a committee. And for these reasons and my known fairness that I will establish and work together with my colleague, Senator Breezy, to make everything that he said move forward. Appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Senator Aguilar. Are there any other nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Aguilar, Vice Chair, Executive Board.
Thanks, Senator Sanders. The motion is to declare the nominations closed and to declare Senator Aguilar as the Vice Chair of the Executive Board by acclamation. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Aguilar. Senator Linehan, you're recognized.
Mr. President, I move to proceed to the election of the other 6 members of the Executive Board of the Legislative Council as outlined in 50-41.01. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Linehan. Members, you've heard the motion. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, reports from the 1st District Caucus concerning the nominations of Senator Suzanne Geist and Elliott Bostar to the Executive Board. Additionally, communication from the 2nd District Caucus concerning the nominations of Senator Tony Vargas and Merv Reapy to the Executive Board. Finally, a communication from the 3rd District Caucus concerning the nominations of Senator Julie Slama and John Lowe to the Executive Board.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Senator McDonald, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the approval of the nominees to the Executive Board of the Legislative Council.
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Members, you heard the motion. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The caucus reports have now been adopted. We'll now move to the elections of the standing committees and select committees, chairpersons. Chair recognizes Senator Reapy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President, and all of those viewers here and my fellow senators. I move to proceed with the election of the standing and select committee chairpersons in accordance with the rules and Rule 3, Section 8A.
Thank you, Senator Reapy. Members, you heard the motion. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. We'll now start with the chair of the Agriculture Committee. Senator Halloran, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, Nebraska. It's a very solemn and serious day today, so I need to start off with something a little on the lighter side. I promise you I will be brief, and I want you to understand, and I want it to be perfectly clear that I know the difference between being brief and being short. Okay. This morning, I submit my name and nomination for chair of the Agriculture Committee. I've had the honor of the Nebraska Legislature placing me and electing me into that position for the last 4 years, the last 2 terms. As chairman, I have drawn upon my past experience as a 5th-generation farmer, now retired, and I have also drawn upon my experience as past national president of the National Farmers Organization. Both experiences have enabled me to better understand this important industry we call agriculture. Agriculture is Nebraska's largest industry, crucially important to our state. The industry is made of farmers and ranchers, men and women, who are hardworking, boldly independent stewards of our natural resources, rich soils, and abundant water. A blessing from our Creator God. Nebraska's farmers and ranchers, by their independent nature, are natural problem solvers. They prefer to solve their own issues within the industry without government intervention. Kudos to them. Consequently, not a large number of bills are referenced to the Agriculture Committee, and I'm okay with that. On the other hand, there are occasional issues which need legislation to govern. That is where the Agriculture Committee becomes involved to sort out the proper legislation to resolve those issues. Colleagues, I would greatly appreciate your vote as I pursue once again chairmanship of the Agriculture Committee. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Halloran. Are there further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Halloran, Chair Agriculture.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to declare Senator Halloran as Chair of the Committee on Agriculture by acclamation. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Halloran. We'll now proceed to nominations for the Committee on Appropriations. Senator Clements, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to present my name as candidate for Chair of the Appropriations Committee. I've served 6 years on the Appropriations Committee. I've had a mathematics degree from the University of Nebraska with minors in actuarial science and economics with honors. I've been a banker for 44 years, working on budgets and cash flows and risk reserves, and I'm familiar with the budget process and comfortable with leading this committee. The Nebraska Constitution requires a balanced budget, and I will uphold that commitment to balance the state's budget by funding the agencies that need to be funded and treating everyone fairly with priorities. Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for your support for this committee chair.
Thank you, Senator Clements. Are there further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Clements for Appropriations Chair.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Members, the motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to declare Senator Clements Chair of the Committee on Appropriations by acclamation. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Clements. The next chairmanship is the chairmanship of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. Nominations are open. Senator Slama.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues. I rise to nominate myself for chairman of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee and ask for your support. Many of you don't know this, but my mom has worked for Auburn State Bank in Southeast Nebraska for nearly 20 years. I bring that up for two reasons. First, my mom is retiring next month, and I'm really proud of her. Second, it's given me the opportunity to get to know the wonderful people that work in this important industry. My sisters and I grew up at Auburn State. We were coached in sports by Jeff, Mike, David, and Kay's husband, Coach Oliver. Sheila made alterations to our homecoming dresses in the break room, and Carol baked our wedding cakes. The Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee is one of the most technical and specialized committees, but I've found in my years serving on the committee that it thrives when we complete our work with the people behind the numbers in mind. The industries under the purview of this committee employ thousands of people statewide and impact the lives of almost all Nebraskans in some way or another. You have my word that, as in the tradition of chairman past, I will run the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee with honesty, transparency, and diligence. It would be an honor to have your support.
Thanks, Senator Slama. Are there any further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Julie Slama, Committee Chairperson for Banking, Commerce, and Insurance.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Members, you heard the motion to declare the nominations closed and to declare Senator Slama as the new chair of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee by acclamation. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The motion is adopted. Congratulations, Senator Slama. Proceeding now to the chairmanship of the Business and Labor Committee. Nominations are now open. Senator Repe, you're recognized.
Mr. President and fellow senators and those that are viewing today, first of all, I want to thank the new speaker for pushing my button to make sure that I got on the mic and it was live. That was very generous on his part. Today, I seek your vote to chair the Business and Labor Committee. I asked for that position based on experience. My experience started out as a farm kid where we learned hard work, solid values, trust, and integrity. I had experience in the U.S. Navy. I think all of these contribute to the committee as a hospital corpsman. I later experienced working full-time as a student while going to school. That was before the days when you could have student loans. I also served as a hospital administrator for nearly 4 years, which is a shared experience with these new speakers, so I'm sure that we're going to hit it off, and I'll get some favorable leans, maybe not. I also worked in that process with a number of professionals and both service workers. So I think from a standpoint of working with a $250 million a year budget and also working with a lot of people, we worked with a lot of workers' comp and dealt with a lot of issues that related to business and labor. As the Business and Labor Committee, I will see us as addressing workers' comps issues, both making that affordable and available, also working with the Court of Industrial Relations, employment laws, and equal opportunity as well as workforce development. How I would manage the Business and Labor Committee, it would be with a sense of determination and respect, not only for the committee members, but for each of you in the interest of your various districts. I am committed to promote success for large and small communities and also for business and labor in terms of being impartial and fair as we address our committee issues. With that, I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Riepe. Are there any further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Riepe, Chairman of Business and Labor.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Members, the motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to elect Senator Riepe by acclamation to Chairman of the Business and Labor Committee. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Riepe. We'll now proceed to the chairmanship of the Education Committee. Nominations are now open. Nominations are now open for Education Committee. Senator Merman, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues. I rise today to ask for my colleagues' vote to chair the Education Committee in the 108th Nebraska Legislature. If you are new to the body or if you are not familiar with me, I am from Glenville, Nebraska, and represent the 38th District covering 8 counties in south central and southwest Nebraska. I am a farmer and former dairy farmer. My wife, Kathy, and I have raised 3 children, Kelsey, Whitney, and Chase, all of whom have been brought up through the public school system. They've brought us the joy of 5 grandkids. Our daughter, Whitney, has been a major blessing in our lives. She has a neurological disorder called Rett syndrome and needs full-time care. Her lived experience has provided me with an up-close view of special education in Nebraska. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Nebraska. My wife, Kathy, attended what was Kearney State College at the time. Our daughter, Kelsey, and her husband, Grant, are graduates of the University of Nebraska, and our son, Chase, is a graduate of Concordia University at Seward. Education has always been a top priority for my family, including my extended family. My uncle, Elmer Merman, was head principal at Hastings High when he retired. My sister is a retired elementary teacher, and her husband is a guidance counselor at a large high school in Nebraska. I have at least 5 nieces and nephews teaching, and I have a cousin who is a research professor at UNMC, and his son and another of my nephews are both medical students at UNMC. Some time ago, I had the pleasure of serving on the Sandy Creek High School Board of Education, and I am a member of Nebraska Lead 9. For the previous 4 years, I've sat on the Education Committee. Sadly, by the end of the 107th legislature, I was the only senator on the committee from a truly rural district or from the 3rd caucus. Proverbs says, "Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it." James Madison once wrote that education is the foundation of civil liberty. Without a robust knowledge of the great opportunity our state and our nation have to offer, we fail to put our best foot forward for Nebraska children. That's a large part of why I'm running for chair of the Education Committee. Our state funding for education formula, TIOSA, must be amended to support more students and more school districts than it is currently. There are 244 school districts in Nebraska. Sadly, only 87 of those 244 districts receive state aid in equalization funding. That is about 35.5% of all Nebraska state schools. This is unacceptable. The focus of the Education Committee for the upcoming session must have a clear direction. First, we senators must be willing to work with Governor-elect Phelan, the task force he has assembled, which includes 2 of our colleagues, Senator Breezy and Senator Sanders, and with each other to enact meaningful change that values every student across our state. The statistic I mentioned a few short moments ago only further underscores the problem which faces us. We must address it. We must reduce the burden on property owners who put forth the lion's share of funding for our state schools. We must do right by them, whether they be agricultural, residential, or commercial property owners. Second, parents must be recognized as the foremost decision maker in every child's upbringing. In Nebraska, we have some of the best schools and best teachers in the nation. We must work together with these great teachers and schools to give our kids the best education possible. We must have education policies that give our teachers a leg up in earning the trust of the students they educate through transparency and accountability. We must reduce the burden of bureaucracy and give parents a choice in choosing the right education for their children. Third, we must work together on a bipartisan basis to address the teacher shortage that is impacting most every school in Nebraska. In our approach, we must look at several incentive-based and certificate-altering approaches that respect and uphold the profession of education. And lastly, we must promote an educational system preparing Nebraska children for joining the workforce and being productive citizens. Our K-12 education must hammer down on the basics: reading, writing, math, science, history, and an appreciation of the God-given rights this nation has preserved for them. They must recognize the world's flaws and sins of the past while having a hopeful and bright outlook for days yet to come, for the promise that is America. The committee must work to adequately fund special education and look to provide reimbursement opportunities for excess costs accumulated. We must give all students, regardless of color, creed, or status, a fair chance to access the privilege that is education. We must have equal opportunity for all, and we must continue to work from the previous committee in retooling the lottery fund to adequately address the needs of our state today. Mr. President, I want to thank all my colleagues again and congratulate our new friends from across the state today. Regardless of the outcome, I know you will join me in problem-solving spirit and decorum our constituents and Nebraskans expect from all of us on everyday issues. I'm grateful for this opportunity to serve this great state, and I ask for your vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Merman. Senator Walls, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, good morning, colleagues, returning and new. It's great to see everybody's here safe. I rise to nominate myself for the chair of the Education Committee. Before I begin, I just want to say that being in the state capitol really never gets old. Every day as I'm walking up the steps, I look up and I can't believe it's the honor that I have to be able to work here. I'm reminded of the history that's taken place here in this chamber and the trials and the challenges overcome, as well as all of the accomplishments. It is truly an honor, and it inspires me to continue this work. It reminds me to push forward and to make sure the decisions we make are in the best interest of the people that we serve. It's that philosophy that drove me to run for the chair of the Education Committee, and that is why I'm running again. When I ran for chair in 2021, there were two things that I promised to this body. One was to bring a new perspective that brings educators, stakeholders, and stakeholders in education together to communicate, to plan, and to strategize. I wanted to ensure that we could celebrate the successes of Nebraska's education system, and we could facilitate new opportunities and always look for ways to improve. The second promise I had was to always listen and have a dialogue with you, even if we didn't see eye to eye. As chair, I believe that I've kept the open dialogue with colleagues, students, families, staff, education groups, and the Department of Education. I am a firm believer in listening. It's why you'll notice that I never, hardly ever leave the chamber when I have meetings with the lobby. I tend to do them right out there in the rotunda. I can tell you that I've learned a lot about what it takes to be the Education Committee chair. And one of those main tenets is listening and responding quickly to situations that arise. During my time as chair, we were facing COVID pandemic and the learning challenges that came along with that. A significant teacher shortage, and we experienced one of the worst school shootings in America's history. I responded quickly to all of those issues. I worked closely with our education world to ensure that students could continue learning in a safe environment through a pandemic. Last year, the Education Committee passed LB 1218, which helped our state add more qualified teachers to the workforce. After the Uvalde shooting, I called on the Department of Education to create a task force to review our school's current safety standards, made up of law enforcement officials, city leaders, concerned parents, and both public and private educators. I can make you a promise now that I will continue that responsive nature to the complicated issues that arise in education. Being chair of the Education Committee is not just about passing bills. It's about building bridges. It's about ensuring that all of us are on the same page when we're working to educate our kids in Nebraska. Last session, we adopted LR 335. And although it's ceremonial in nature, it really sets a tone for our state. Currently, 58% of Nebraskans between the ages of 25 and 34 have completed some form of higher education. Myself, along with the Education Committee and with post-secondary education groups, worked together to set a new attainment goal of 70%. That's a lofty goal, but I know that working together, we can accomplish that. Goals like this are important. All education helps prepare students to become next leaders of our state, to become innovators, and to build problem-solving skills. We need leaders who are proactive and not reactive, ones that are thinking about our state's future. Not only have I worked with post-secondary institutions to help retain the best and the brightest, I've also been working with business to better understand how we can develop our workforce and set our students up for success as they begin their careers. I've worked to build coalitions with all those who are impacted in our education system, and I will remain committed to building those bridges. My work as chair is anything but over. And I can assure you that I will continue to pursue legislation to restructure our school finance model and ensure true property tax relief. I'll also work to address the mental and behavioral health issues, the needs of our students. I'm carrying on our work from last year to address the severe teacher shortage. I will also be bringing forward legislation to address the identified needs from the School Safety Task Force. The Education Committee is a complex committee with ever-changing needs, and it deserves a leader who can meet that challenge. Before I was a state senator, I was a fourth grade teacher, a child care provider, and a member of the Archbishop Bergen School Board. But most importantly, I'm a mother and a grandmother to students that are and have been through the Nebraska education system. I know that schools are the cornerstone of our communities. It's where we all gather to root on our hometown teams under the Friday night lights. It's where families go to celebrate their accomplishments, and it's where our children grow to become outstanding Nebraskans. As chair, I will continue to showcase all of the good our schools do for our families, communities, and state. I'm a firm believer that there's always work to be done. I've been on the Education Committee for 6 years, 2 of them as vice chair and 2 as chair. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve, and I'm dedicated to ensuring the success of every student in Nebraska. It's a big responsibility. It's about educating kids and also providing a future workforce and economic development to keep Nebraska staying competitive. It would be an honor to receive your vote and continue to lead the great work of the Education Committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Walls. Are there any further nominations? I see none. I declare the nominations closed. Members, because this is a contested race, I'll ask you each to present to the clerk a written ballot. I believe there are pads of paper before you. Just write the name of the senator that you're voting for on that piece of paper, submit it to the clerk. And I'm going to need 3 senators to please serve us as tellers. After you've voted, please come forward and serve us as tellers. Senator Day, Senator Von Gilleren, and Senator Hansen. Members, please come to order. By a vote of 32 to 17, Senator Merman, you've been elected as chair of the Education Committee. Congratulations. The next office is chair of the General Affairs Committee. Nominations are now open. Senator Lowe, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today and ask for your vote to be the next General Affairs Chair. This position has opened because Senator Breezy has decided to seek a different chairmanship. Senator Breezy has done a great job over the last 4 years as chair of the General Affairs Committee, and it has been a great experience serving as his vice chair. It would be an honor to be chosen today to serve as chair so I can continue the great work that was done by Senator Breezy before me. The General Affairs Committee deals with several subject matters, but over the last few years, the biggest areas of concern have been tobacco, liquor, and gambling legislation. Most of my professional career has been spent working in the alcohol industry. I have built, owned, and operated 5 different bars over the last few years. The background gives me a perspective in the alcohol industry that few others have and will allow me, that few others have. And this will allow me to be an advocate for the many small businesses that make up this industry, while ensuring that we have oversight and regulations that keep Nebraskans safe. Over the last 5 years, I have also brought several pieces of legislation that have worked to improve our liquor laws. Many of these bills have been passed into law after working with interested parties to find a compromise. Many other liquor bills have been brought by other senators that I have taken an active role in negotiating to try to find a path forward that all could be satisfied with. In my time as state senator, I have been opposed to expanded gambling in Nebraska, but in 2020, the people voiced a different opinion. Since that time, I have worked with senators and interested parties to ensure the legislature is following the voters' mandate. As chair, I will continue to work to ensure our gambling laws are what the voters expected them to be when they made their voices heard in 2020. I have also brought bills or detailed conversations about each other of the areas the General Affairs Committee deals with. I believe my professional experience, plus my 4 years serving as vice chair of the committee, will allow me to work closely with my colleagues to create the best possible legislation. With that, I ask for your support as the next chair of the General Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Senator Lowe. Are there any further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Lowe, Committee Chairperson for General Affairs.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to elect Senator Lowe by acclamation to the chairmanship of the General Affairs Committee. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Lowe. The next chairmanship is the Committee on Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs. Senator Brewer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not going to turn on my light to read because I have nothing to read. I think that I'm rising here today to ask for your vote to be the chair of Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs because I gave 37 years to wearing the uniform of this country. Spent 2 years working with wounded veterans after I left service and 6 years in this body, 2 as the vice chair and 4 as the chair. So that's the credentials I'm going to give you on why I think you should vote for me to be the chairman of Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs. And for those that haven't been here to see the government committee in action, I would invite you to do that. I am blessed with a staff that keeps it a very efficient and professional committee. And it's not one of the committees that necessarily is very easy. A lot of issues come before it. This will be no different year with voter ID. But we owe it to the people of Nebraska as a second house to hear their voice, even if it means long, long days. And doing that and still maintaining a professional presence and a pleasant presence for those testifying is a challenge as a chairman. So I would ask for your vote, and I would just promise that that is what I will do as the chairman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Brewer. Are there any further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Brewer, Chair, Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to elect Senator Brewer as chair by acclamation of the Committee on Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Congratulations, Senator Brewer. The next chairmanship is for the Committee on Health and Human Services. Nominations are now open. Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think maybe a lot of you know, I typically don't get too nervous when I get up here and speak, but I have my 6-year-old daughter standing next to me, eyeballing me this whole time. So I hope this isn't like the first memory she has of me burned in her head. So I better not mess up. Thank you, Mr. President, fellow colleagues. I appreciate the opportunity to come up here and speak to you about this position. My reason for wanting to be the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee ties closely to the rationale I gave here on this floor 2 years ago while seeking the chair of the Business and Labor Committee. I feel my personal philosophy, experience, and goals would lend themselves well to the responsibility as chair of HHS, for which I would describe in the following. First, I have always believed in fostering a healthcare system that encompasses efficiency, empathy, and effectiveness, cultivating the concept of personal responsibility, protecting the rights and lives of those under our care, prioritizing parental rights, reducing burdensome and overbearing red tape in healthcare that hinder the free market to drive cost and forces healthcare workers to spend more time doing paperwork instead of doing the job they love, and making sure the most vulnerable are taken care of in collaboration with family and community. All these are a worthwhile direction we can point our compass to when associating HHS and Nebraska as a whole. Second, when it comes to experience, I have been involved in the healthcare industry for the last 16 years, owned multiple chiropractic clinics with multiple doctors and staff, and have been on the HHS committee for the last 4 years. I think this is experience, most especially in the provider aspect of healthcare, the collaboration of Speaker Arch's knowledge and guidance in the administrative side of healthcare, and the HHS committee's varied background and expertise will work in concert to better serve the committee and the people of Nebraska. Lastly, I feel I've learned a great deal the last 4 years here in my varying roles. I also believe that my career as a business owner, a healthcare professional, a father, and resolve to listen and act with my head and my heart will benefit the legislature in this capacity. I can tell you with no reservation that my goal as chair would be to always be thoughtful of my fellow senators, our constituents, the healthcare community, and the institution when making decisions on behalf of the community. I would appreciate your consideration and humbly ask for your vote for the great duty and honor of chairing the Health and Human Services Committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Are there further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nomination be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Hansen, Health and Human Service Chair Committee.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to elect Senator Hansen by acclamation to the chairmanship of the Health and Human Services Committee. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Hansen. We'll now proceed to the chairmanship of the Committee on Judiciary. Nominations are now open. Senator Wayne, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would like to nominate myself for Judiciary Chair. but I got a couple things I want to say. One, I need some WD-40 for my chair back here. Every time I move when Clemens was talking, it was really weird. And so, second, for those watching at home, you'll notice when Senator Clemens was elected to appropriations chair, everybody from the front ran up and shook his hand. That won't happen for judiciary, so don't expect that. The last 6 years, I was honored to serve this body as Urban Affairs Chair. I also want to say, Senator Breezy, you have a great legal counsel on the exec board with Trevor Fitzgerald. He was served as Urban Affairs Chair for a little over 10 years, my 6 years, and my success would not have happened without him. But outside of urban affairs, as we grew urban affairs, as we handled everything from TIF to regional transit, I want to talk a little bit more about outside urban affairs. This body was able to pass tax relief. We had some very big debates. Many of you know that whether it was urban affairs or not, I was always a part of trying to make sure we moved the ball going forward. And last year, we successfully had the biggest investment from the state of Nebraska in North and South Omaha with a little over $300 million. That's the same approach that I plan on taking these last 2 years as I serve in this body as hopefully Judiciary Chair. We are dealing with some of the toughest issues in judiciary. Everybody in there knows that. I will run it the same way I ran urban affairs, which is fair, transparent, and everybody will know what bills are coming up, where your bills are, and when exec sessions are. You will know if you don't have the votes, I will tell you you don't have the votes to get it out of that committee, and you need to go and do some more work. My approach is real simple. It's a common sense approach to prison reform. We have an overcrowded prison system, one of the worst in the country. My approach to criminal justice reform is very simple. We have to be smart and conservative on crime, not just tough on crime. This body knows we cannot build our way out of our prison situation, so it's going to take this entire body to come up with a solution, everywhere from appropriations, which is why I decided to sit right next to him, so I know what's going on, but also to just overall reform throughout the system. And that's going to take a lot of work for everybody in here. In these last 2 years, I know we can rise to this challenge. I know we can get it done. And for those who came in with me, we only have 150 days left, including today on this floor. We have 150 days to change Nebraskans' lives and make Nebraska a place for the future. It goes by quick. And if you don't know if it goes by quick, we've already spent 450 days on this floor. So I look forward to these conversations. I look forward to leading judiciary. I look forward to solving some of these tough issues that are facing Nebraska. But understand, I'm only as good as everybody else on this floor coming together and working together. And I hope I can do that again over these next 2 years as Judiciary Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. Are there any further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Wayne, Committee Chairperson for Judiciary.
Thanks, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to elect Senator Wayne by acclamation as Chair of the Committee on Judiciary. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Wayne. The next chairmanship is the Committee on Natural Resources. Members, please come to order. Nominations are now open for Chair of Natural Resources. Senator Bosselman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues, and good morning, Nebraska. Colleagues, welcome back. And to all the new senators, welcome. And a special welcome to all of our family members who are here with us today. It's a time for celebration, time of recognition. Thank you for supporting those who are sitting here in the seats today, those who will spend some long days, some long nights together to try to figure things out. But we have to do the work before us. Thank you for your support of those and continued support of those as we move forward to the next 2 years. I rise this morning to nominate myself for the position of Chairman of the Natural Resource Committee. I have served on the Natural Resource Committee the last 6 years. My first 4 as a vice chairman of the committee, and the last 2 as a chairman of the Natural Resource Committee. During this time, the committee has conducted hearings both in the Capitol and across the state. In specific, 2019 bomb cyclone. Sarah Pansing Brooks and myself co-chaired a committee that investigated and looked at the devastation that happened across our state, which resulted in the statewide flood mitigation plan. We also, this last session, addressed flood control in the Platte River Basin. And also, we addressed a 100-year-old aging surface water projects in western and central Nebraska with a grant program, which is vital to our farmers in those areas. Also, after Uri happened, we held 2 lengthy hearings. I want to thank my committee members for that. We spent a lot of hours, probably about 10 hours on that, to understand what happened. Had the SPP come up and our public power districts come in. It was well worth the time and effort that we put into them. I want to thank you for that. More recently, I completed the study with Lehigh, the Legislative Energy Horizon Institute, both in Pacific National Labs out in Washington State and also on policy in Washington, D.C. on the Hill. As chairman, I will continue to work on providing an open and welcoming committee to all testifiers, treating them with respect and dignity. I pledge to you that every bill brought before the committee will receive a fair, efficient, and professional process. I'll continue to ensure that all bills advanced from the committee are ready for the floor debate, and that each bill has a committee statement. I respectfully ask for your vote as chairman of the Natural Resources Committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Bosselman. Are there further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Bosselman, Committee Chairperson for Natural Resources.
Thanks, Senator Sanders. The motion before you, members, is to declare the nominations closed and to elect Senator Bosselman by acclamation to the chairmanship of the Natural Resources Committee. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Congratulations, Senator Bosselman. Next chairmanship is the Committee on Retirement Systems. Nominations are now open. Senator McDonald, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Welcome, new senators. Thank you for your willingness to serve, and thank you for your families' sacrifice that they'll make while you're serving the citizens of Nebraska. I am proud to announce my candidacy for chair of Nebraska's Retirement Committee. I've been a member of the committee since 2020 and played an active role in improving our state-administered retirement plans, which are now some of the best funded in the country. In my time as a member of the committee, I have introduced and supported legislation that improves options for pre-tax and after-tax contributions, ensured the long-term sustainability of the judges' retirement system, streamlined administration efforts, and promoted the responsible use of early retirement incentives by school districts. As chair, I will continue to prioritize the sustainable retirement benefits for Nebraska public employees while also mindful of the taxpayers' dollars. If elected chair of the Nebraska Retirement Committee, I promise to use my leadership skills, collaborative nature for the betterment of the public employees and taxpayers. This is an important role that I take seriously, and I look forward to continuing my work on behalf of Nebraskans. I ask for your support and your vote. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator McDonald. Are there further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator McDonald, Committee Chairperson for Nebraska Retirement Systems.
Thanks, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to elect Senator McDonald by acclamation to the chairmanship of the Retirement Systems Committee. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Congratulations, Senator McDonald. Proceeding now to the chairmanship of the Revenue Committee. Nominations are now open. Senator Linehan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to ask for your vote to continue to be chair of the Revenue Committee. I have been blessed in many ways during my time here in the legislature.
Senator Linehan, that microphone is not functioning properly. Maybe you could move over to the next one.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does this work?
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I rise to ask for your vote to continue to be the chair of the Revenue Committee. I also want to congratulate all the new members here today and their families. This is an incredible experience, and I wish you all the very best of luck. And I'm very excited about our new class. I've been blessed in many ways serving in the legislature. First, I would like to thank the speakers I've been honored to serve with, starting with Senator Scheer, Senator Hilders, and now Senator Arch. We've had fantastic leadership, which has made this place run. I have also been blessed with an incredible group of people on the Revenue Committee. The last 2 years, that included Senator Friesen, Senator Pauls, God bless him, Senator Flood, who's now back in DC having so much fun, Senator Lindstrom, Senator Breezy, who's still here, thank goodness, Senator Albright, and Senator Bostar. We've got a lot done. I feel like we've accomplished a lot. And today is so different for my class than when we got here, which I'm looking at Senator McDonald, he'll remember. He's on appropriations. We had no money. Like we were in the hole so deep. $1 billion short. Now we're upside down. So we have unprecedented opportunities in front of us to do really great things for Nebraska, get our tax code into a situation that we're truly competitive, address school finance, and make sure that we're prepared if there's a downturn, which there always, we all know, there will be a downturn at some point. But we also need to be brave and really look at all the great opportunities we have that serve the people of Nebraska, to take care of our greatest resource, which is our kids. Whether that's education, their opportunities, and keeping them here. We want Nebraskans to stay in Nebraska, and we can do so much in this session and the next session of the 108th legislature to get there. So thank you, and thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Senator Linehan. Are there further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nominations be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator Lanahan, Committee Chairperson for Revenue.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to elect Senator Linehan by acclamation to the chairmanship of the Revenue Committee. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Congratulations, Senator Linehan. Nominations are now open for the chairmanship of the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee. Senator Branch, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, Nebraska. First, congratulations to my new colleagues. I look forward to working with you in the next 4 years. Together, we are about to embark on a journey of public service to the people of Nebraska. Today, I'm asking for your vote for Chair of Transportation and Telecommunications Committee. I am beginning my 5th year in the legislature, and over that time, the bills and issues that have made their way to the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee have only grown in importance, especially rural broadband and the maintenance, building, and funding of our roads and bridges across the entire state. Over the past few years, there have been a lot of challenging issues that have made their way to the committee, from infrastructure damage due to the flooding in 2019, and then the need to move critical work and meetings to video calls and online due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw students learning from home or trying to, depending on their level of connectivity. Some having to drive into town to sit in the McDonald's parking lot or sit on a hilltop to gain signal strength. Our children's education should not be compromised because they live in a digital desert. Some of this is self-inflicted because the power because of the power incumbent telecom providers have to cancel competitive growth in areas they control while providing little or poor service. This needs to change. In 2003, the same group worked to pass restrictions on our public power providers to keep them out of the broadband arena. Let me ask you, how is that working? Broadband is a utility, just like electricity, and the state needs to work harder to provide this service to all unserved and underserved citizens across the state, from North Omaha to Harrison. The state will soon be receiving hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding to expand our broadband footprint. It will be exciting to work with a new administration and the PSC to target and efficiently and effectively disperse broadband monies. I am here to report that I am up to the challenge and will tackle these issues head on, working to get consensus from the committee in addressing them. I am one of 3 candidates for chair of this committee. I promise to be focused on the people's business, and my attention will not be divided. You deserve a chair who will be focused on transportation and telecommunications from day one. In the past 4 years, I have introduced 4 broadband bills and 2 bridge bills. I am ready to hit the ground running as I work on these same issues for the next 4 years. So colleagues, we have a challenge ahead of us and a tone to set. I have built relationships with the NDOT, with the telecoms, with public power, and together we go forward. We have a lot of work to do, and we will get it done. With that, I ask for your vote as Chair of Transportation and Telecommunications. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Brandt. For the nomination, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I wasn't intending to speak this soon because I know that there are others, but I guess I was the only one in the queue. I rise today to nominate one of our colleagues for Chair of Transportation. I know that there are 3 individuals that have put their names forward via email and letters to all of us, and I appreciate that so much. I've really kind of struggled as to who I was going to support in this position, and I realized that the crux of that struggle is that there was one other person that I thought should be considered, and that's Senator Wendy DeBoer. I've served on this committee for 4 years. I've served on it alongside of Senator Geist for 4 years and Senator DeBoer for 4 years, Senator Mosier for 2 years, and I appreciate the service that all of them have brought. This next couple of years, we're going to see a massive infusion into broadband, and I haven't seen anyone work as diligently and consistently on the issue of addressing broadband as Senator Wendy DeBoer. She has brought her heart and soul to that, and she also is one of the most fair-minded people in this body, and I think everyone who's worked with her over the last 4 years would agree that she works harder to collaborate with everyone, no matter what position you take on any issue. She and I have butt heads many times and are still friends at the end of the day, and she just brings her intelligence and grace to every aspect of this committee and the work on it. I know that it is unusual to nominate somebody on the floor like this, but I just didn't think it was right to go without at least pushing her a little bit, even if she declines, to stand up and speak to this issue, because she has worked so hard and with so much grace on this committee. And I just value you so much, Senator DeBoer, and I thank you for your work, and I hope you will consider this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cavanaugh. Senator DeBoer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, for your kind words. I will decline the nomination at this time, but I do appreciate all that you said, and I think I might be suited more towards the vice chair role. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator DeBoer. Are there further nominations? Senator Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I consider it an honor to serve with all the returning senators and the new senators, and I appreciate your willingness to serve as we try to solve the issues that affect all the citizens of Nebraska. The chairmanship of Transportation and Telecommunications is important to me for a number of reasons. We have some competent people running, and I consider them to be friends, and I hope that we're still friends when this is all resolved here in a few minutes. But I couldn't stand back and not attempt to be chair of the committee and wait a couple years when that chairmanship may come open again later. I think the issues that face us are bigger than what can be solved in 2 years, even if we, had the same goals, the people running. I think some of us have different passions and have different motivations for running. For me, my passion has been and will continue to be to improve roads in Nebraska, and especially in my district, because it's so important to have good roads, to build economic development in our area, for safety, to get to and from Omaha and Lincoln, for manufacturing to bring in their raw materials and their finished goods and get them where they need to be, for agriculture, so that we can allow the shipment or facilitate the shipment of chickens, hogs, cattle, both to the production buildings and to processing. And we've been waiting since 2003 when the expressway was supposed to be completed, and now it's 2022 and the expressway is about 70% done. I've co-sponsored several bills and entered several bills to try to address the speedier completion of the expressway, and the Department of Roads opposed, I think, every bill that I either co-sponsored or introduced myself. So we need to work on the relationship between the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee and the Department of Roads to get a better understanding of what our goals are and how we can help them to accelerate the completion of the expressway system. The areas that I think we need to work on is I think we need to shorten the timeline on the expressway. I think we need to increase funding for roads. I think we need to authorize bonding. Almost every other state allows bonding for road building. It's only sensible to allow people who are going to use those roads in the future to pay for them when they're using them 10 years from now or even 5 years from now. I just, to think of paying for those as we go is a hindrance to the completion of roads. If we had done the South Beltway around Lincoln, pay as you go, you'd be a mile or two from 77 and the road would end in a cornfield like our North Arterial did in Columbus before I got elected there. But it's done. I drove on it the other day. It's a beautiful road. We probably have 7 or 8 payments of $30 million to make, but I think that was a good decision. I voted for it. I think that we should allow bonding. In broadband, I think we have had kind of a patchwork of grant programs that added some citizens to the high-speed internet world, and then we have others that have been left in the dust. I think we need to widen the scope of the programs we're going to do, work on public and private partnerships to increase the number of people and reduce the cost of adding people to the high-speed internet world. I was mayor of Columbus from 2004 to 2016, and we built bridges and viaducts that had been in consideration for 75 years. We had shelves full of reports and studies, engineering studies, feasibility studies, and we never could get it done. And I created a committee that looked at the problem, got it solved. We've got 2 viaducts now built, and the arterial that ended in a cornfield by Walmart when I first got elected, was completed in 2011. We used some bonding. We used some local option sales tax. We used some federal and state funding to pay for it, but we got a 4-lane expressway built around the north side of Columbus. We got it designed, permitted, constructed, and it is currently in use. So I have experience in building roads and bridges in complicated situations, and I think that's why I think I would be the best candidate to lead transportation and telecommunications. I think at this point I will conclude by just saying that some of the senators I talked to said that they were going to vote for a member of our body based on who they think the majority of people are going to support. In other words, kind of go along, get along. Three of them said they don't want to rock the boat and vote for somebody who's not up next to be chair of transportation. I'd encourage you to vote for the person you think that has the best chance of getting the problems addressed and solved. And I would appreciate your support if you find that you believe that I would be that person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Mosier. Senator Lowe, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Kavanaugh, you ruined, I thought I was going to be the only one that would nominate someone else, but I'm glad ladies went first. I would like to nominate Senator Geist. I have 3 friends in this race so far, and it is hard for me to nominate just one person because they're all good friends. But I gave Senator Geist my vote early, and I said I would continue with that. Senator Geist has been is running for the chair of Transportation Telecommunications Committee. Her 6 years of experience on the committee and 4 years as vice chair have proved her with the experience and the knowledge to be an effective chair. Senator Geist has proven that she will listen to people from all sides of the issue, which is also good quality for the chair. And even though I did give it to her first, I will give it to her now, and I would always give it to her. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Lowe. Senator Geist, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Lowe. It's an exciting morning, and I do welcome all the new senators, our new clerk, our new speaker, and actually we have a number of new additions to the legislature, so I welcome all of you. And it's an honor to serve with you, and I look forward to a productive session. I also do want to salute the colleagues who have run for this position as well. I appreciate their contribution. I know it's been a good discussion among the body, and I appreciate the process. Today, I am running for the chair of Transportation and Telecommunications. I have served on the committee for 6 years and getting ready to serve on the 7th year and vice chair for 4. My past work experience, which I'll bring up, also includes 6 years in the telecom industry. And I bring that up to let you know that my work experience also lends to the experience beyond just serving on the committee. The committee handles a broad span of issues, and I commit to be focused on each one of those day one, just as I have been focused on those since I got elected. One of the things, as you've heard from the other candidates, that we'll be focusing on is broadband and the deployment of that. Part of that consists of the Broadband Bridge Program, which is run by the PSC, which is a state-run program. We also have the BEAD program, which gives hundreds of millions of dollars to the state from the federal government. But I want you to understand about that as we bring some bills to the floor that will address that. That is a federal program that allows capital investment. It doesn't say anything about maintaining our capital investment. So there is some work to be done as we walk through the BEAD program, and we do have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that's going to present great numbers of money to this state. However, we have to answer the question with the industries that will be involved with this, how are we going to maintain this broad network that the money is going to come in? It's important that we do that in a strategic way, because we don't want to, in 10 years, be back in this same place, wondering how we're going to deploy broadband to those who are unserved and underserved. That's an important thing the committee will focus on. We also work closely with the Department of Transportation and its priorities. The department's most recent milestone, which I just can't let be unsaid, was the opening of the South Beltway in Lincoln. Senator Hilgers and I partnered together to bring legislation that would bring that project to fruition in a shorter span of time that's been done in the past. It was creative, it was out-of-the-box thinking, and the kind of thinking that we need to push forward in the future to do more of and ask more questions of how can we be creative about building new roads and bridges. And I commit to doing that with my committee as well. And I'm also committed to working with the Aeronautics Division of our state's Transportation Department. This is a newer part of the committee. Last interim, I visited several state smaller airports to learn about how they contribute to their community, their agriculture, and their economic development. It was really interesting and something that I'm committed to work with and continue to learn more about. As chair, I will also commit to work with the committee members to understand their concerns and facilitate good and fair conversation. I've always treated my colleagues and the public testifiers with dignity and respect, and I will continue to do that. I will also continue to encourage debate and out-of-the-box thinking. I believe the combination of work experience, past committee experience, involvement in issues, and negotiations, and passion for these make me uniquely qualified to be the chair of this committee. I appreciate your consideration, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Geis. Are there any further nominations? I see none. I declare the nominations closed. We'll now proceed to voting. If members could please take a written ballot and write the name of the senator that you're going to vote for. Give that ballot to the clerk, and I'm going to ask 3 senators to vote and then step forward to serve as tellers. Senator Ibach, Senator Erdman, and Senator John Kavanaugh. Senator Geist has secured 29 votes and is declared the chair of the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee. Congratulations, Senator Geist. Chairmanship of the Urban Affairs Committee. Nominations are now open. Senator McKinney, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues and everyone else in the balcony. I rise to ask for your support for chairmanship of the Urban Affairs Committee. During my short time in the legislature, I have committed myself to working for the people of Nebraska, working hard to listen, learn, and advocate on their behalf. Having served as a member of the Judiciary Committee and Education Committee over the past 2 years, I am no stranger to lengthy and contentious committee hearings and working on tough issues that make this job fun for us all. Also recognize the importance of working across the aisle to craft good public policy, which can be shown in multiple bills that I've been able to get passed over the last couple of years. The Urban Affairs Committee has taken a great strides to update and modernize the statutes under the committee's jurisdiction and to address the lack of affordable housing, workforce housing in both rural and urban communities, and economic recovery. If elected as chair, I commit myself to continue this important work and to work collectively with you all to help move our state forward in the right direction. I appreciate your consideration and look forward to working with you all during the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McKinney. Are there further nominations? I see none. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nomination be closed and a unanimous vote by acclamation be cast for Senator McKinney, Committee Chairperson for Urban Affairs.
Thanks, Senator Sanders. The motion before you is to declare the nominations closed and to elect Senator McKinney by acclamation to chairmanship of the Urban Affairs Committee. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator McKinney. We'll now move to the chairmanship of the Rules Committee. Nominations are now open. Senator Urban, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President and Lieutenant Governor. I submitted my name for the Rules Chairman, and I'll make comments about that in a minute, but I think before I proceed with those, I would like to thank Mike Foley for his years of service as Lieutenant Governor. Thank you, Mike.
Legislation will come to order, please. Thank you all very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You know, he had an idea that I may do that. And so forgiveness is far easier than permission. So let me begin with my remarks about the Rules Chairman. First of all, I want to thank Senator DeBoer for pointing out to me, for sending out a letter that said I was vice chair for 4 years. What I did when I decided to do that, I called my staff and I said, you have those little books that show who serves on every committee? They said, yes, we do. I said, review and see how many times I was vice chair. And they wrote back and said 4 years. And I said, okay. So I wrote the letter up with 4 years. And Senator DeBoer was kind enough to send me an email and say, hey, just a heads up, you weren't vice chair last year, I was. And so she could have let that ride and not said anything. I'd have probably not known it, but I appreciate that, Senator DeBoer. Thank you for doing that. So the Rules Committee is a very important position. What I've done over the last couple of years is try to review those to understand what the rules mean and how to apply them. If I am Rules Committee Chairman, I will send to the Rules Committee those changes or adjustments that I think need to be made to the rules in advance, so you'll have a chance to look at those and study those and come with your opinions on the ideas that I have. I found one typo that needs to be changed, and I believe there'll be some other changes that the clerk's office may want to make to the rules. So I will commit to you that I will make those rule changes to you available as soon as I get them from the other members of the body so that you can review those and have a discussion about how we should go forward with either changing or amending the rules. So I will treat you fairly as I always have. I appreciate the fact that you've been here all this time this morning, sitting here until 12:30, and I am probably the only one, and maybe Senator McCavanagh, standing between you and lunch. And my wife is going to be surprised that I said lunch because I call it dinner. But anyway, between food. But I appreciate your vote today. And I heard this morning when they announced that the rules are to be completed by the 12th day, which is January 20th. That's our goal. And so we need to move forward to get the rules done. And I hope it doesn't become like it did in 17 when it took us 28 days. I know it won't, because we can figure out how to do this efficiently and quickly. So I appreciate your vote. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.
Thanks, Senator Erdman. For the nomination, Senator John Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I rise to, place my name in nomination for Rules Chair, and I appreciate Senator Erdman running. He and I spoke earlier about, as Senator Mosier said, having no hard feelings, and this is an important role to undertake. And the Rules is a short-term committee that only meets as necessary, though last session we did meet an extra time. I was on the Rules Committee along with Senator Erdman, and in that capacity, we reviewed rules and necessary changes. We made the changes to that special committee with reference to Committee on Committees. But the reason I'm running for the Rules Chair is this is an extremely important job that requires fairness, it requires objectivity, and it requires a commitment to the integrity of the body and the rules, irrespective of your desired outcome. The rules protect this body, they protect the legislature, and it protects everyone. And they can be used by people to stymie laws or bills, and they can be used by people to advance them. And having a mastery of the rules is important, but making sure that the rules are fair to everyone, regardless of which side you're on, because you never know whether you're going to end up on the other side next time. So my objective in being Rules Chair and serving on the Rules Committee and serving in this body has always been to make sure that the rules are equitably enforced for everyone and that everyone has an opportunity to be heard. And so in that capacity, I will make sure that every rule that gets proposed to the Rules Committee gets a fair hearing, gets a fair opportunity to be presented to the body, and that above all, that we pursue rules that will protect the integrity of this body into the future. We are given a gift here in the Nebraska Legislature. The unique unicameral is just that. It is unique in all of the country. Anybody who's met somebody from another state knows how much better it is to be a senator in the Nebraska unicameral than any other elected body in the country. And so we need to make sure that the rules continue to preserve that situation. And so I ask for your vote for Chair of Rules, because that's what I'm dedicated to as the Chair of the Rules Committee. And Senator Erdman and I both agreed to give short speeches. I think mine's shorter, so I will sit down.
Thanks, Senator Kavanaugh. Are there any further nominations? I see none. I declare the nominations closed. Members, once again, if you can complete a written ballot, provide your written ballot to the clerk, and I'll ask 3 senators to please step forward and serve us as tellers. Senator Hunt, Senator Ballard, and Senator Lippincott, if you could come forward and serve us as tellers. On a vote of 33 to 15, Senator Erdman, you've been elected chair of the Rules Committee. Congratulations, Senator Erdman. Members, we're now moved to the chairmanship of the highly coveted Enrollment and Review Committee. Senator McKinney, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I nominate Senator Ballard as the next ENR chairman.
Thank you, Senator McKinney. The motion before you is to declare Senator Ballard a winner by acclamation. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Senator Ballard. You will enjoy the work. Pursuant to the provisions of Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, I recognize Senator Jacobson for a motion.
Hello? Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that a committee of 3 be appointed to escort the Secretary of State to the chamber to deliver election returns of the general election of November 2022.
Thank you, Senator Jacobson. The question is the adoption of the motion to appoint a committee to escort the Secretary of State. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. I appoint Senators Halloran, Dorn, and Michaela Cavanaugh to escort the Secretary of State to the chamber to deliver the election results. With a committee of 3, please retire to the rear of the chamber and escort the Secretary of State. I recognize the Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. President, your committee now escorting the Secretary of State, Bob Evening.
Chair recognizes the Secretary of State. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Senator Dorn, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the report of the Secretary of State and the candidates stated therein be declared duly elected.
Thanks, Senator Dorn. The question is the adoption of the motion to accept the report from the Secretary of State pursuant to provisions of Article 4, Section 4 of the Nebraska Constitution. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Members, we had many members of family with us today. I wasn't able to recognize them, but there are two special family members I do want to recognize. With us today is my wife, Susan, and my middle son, Peter. If those two guests could please rise. Thank you for being here today. Senator Archer, recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to arrange to hold the inaugural ceremonies for the newly elected state officials on Thursday, January 5th, 2023 at 1:30 p.m.
Thank you, Senator Archer. The question is the motion to hold inaugural ceremonies. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Mr. Clerk, do you have any messages, reports, or announcements?
I do, Mr. President. Note from the Committee on Committees that they will meet in room 1524 at in an hour and a half from now. Hour and a half from now, Committee on Committees meet in room 1524. Finally, Mr. President, an adjournment motion. Senator Wishart would move to adjourn the body until January 5th, 2023 at 10 o'clock a.m.
Members, you heard the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. No, we're not reading bills today. Those in favor of adjourning say aye. Those opposed say nay. We are adjourned.